The truth behind Sasha Banks appearing at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 17. Bray Wyatt provides an update on the health of Barry Windham. And 5 titles change hands at ROH Final Battle last night. And there's a bunch of your questions to get to, of course, because it is the Solo Sunday news here at What Culture Wrestling with myself, Andrew Pollard. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on notification bells on, all that generic jazzy stuff that I had to get out there early on. But most importantly, as ever, just make sure you're having a great day. But Sasha Banks, who was not on either of these shows I watched, I would kill for some Sasha Banks right now. Some Sasha Banks, one of the greatest talents in the world. Sasha Banks, Wrestle Kingdom. The story in the week was that Sasha Banks will be attending in some capacity New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 17 next month. And there's been a slight update on that from the Wrestling Observer, or Wrestling Observer Radio for Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, to say that the deal here is this appearance has not been booked through WWE. And the belief from New Japan Pro Wrestling is that because it's January the 4th is the first day of Wrestle Kingdom 17, and there's another date on I think it's the 21st of January. And the belief amongst New Japan Pro Wrestling, if this report from the Observer is to be believed, is that New Japan are under the belief that Sasha Banks will be free to do whatever she wants by those dates. As in, she'll be a free agent. Now, this one's a strange story that's been developing because we've seen how WWE under Triple H has been willing to work with other promotions. I mean, you've got Shinsuke Nakamura facing the Great Muta for Noah in a couple of weeks, and that's an arrangement that's come together. So some people thought that maybe this was a WWE and a New Japan Pro Wrestling agreement where, okay, Sasha can go there and do something. Of course, she'll also add that these reports of Sasha Banks being at Wrestle Kingdom 17, there's no details on what role she will play there. So it's just like, she's going to be there. Is she going to wrestle? Is she just going to be backstage? Is she there for talks about something? Is she going to be on screen but not wrestle? That all remains to be seen. And of course, there is plenty of rumblings that there could be some sort of setup in play for Sasha to face Kairi, the former Kairi Sane, who is the IWGP Women's Champion, the inaugural IWGP Women's Champion. And then there's also that 11th of January date where Saraya is going to be teaming with a mystery partner to take on Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and Jamie Hayter. So definitely let's keep your eyes on this one. And I mean, I'd like to see Sasha Banks in the wrestling ring sooner rather than later because she is just ridiculously talented. Someone else who's ridiculously talented, of course, is Barry Windham, an absolute legend of the business who, unfortunately, this past week suffered a heart attack. Now, Bray Wyatt, who is the nephew of Barry Windham, has provided an update taken to Instagram to say that thankfully, Barry Windham is out of the ICU. He's stabilised, but there was scary details where Bray detailed how his uncle didn't have a pulse for between 10 and 20 minutes, that's just scary, man. And also he gave a shout out to I've got it written down here, Michael Todd Lalick for helping out. It was just a civilian who was there when Barry had his heart attack and gave him CPR until the medics could be on the scene. So it looks like Barry Windham is taking an upturn in his health, which is great to hear. As mentioned, Bray Wyatt said that he's stabilised now. He is out of the ICU, so hopefully the worst is behind him, and hopefully it's a recovery from here for Barry Windham, because one of the all-time greats. There was a spell where Barry Windham was, if he wasn't the best wrestler on the planet, he was in the conversation, especially if you look at the baby faces. I mean, just a phenomenal worker. When you've got people like Steve Austin and Ric Flair saying how Barry Windham is one of the greatest people they've ever stepped across the ring with, or in some cases the best person they've been in the ring with, the most naturally gifted person they've been in the ring with, you know that the dude was legit. It doesn't get any more legit than getting praise from someone like Austin or Ric Flair, two people who've been there, done it, wrestled pretty much everyone there is to wrestle in terms of, relatively modern history. So Barry Windham, just one of the greats. And away from that story, I don't know how to transition from that to Ring of Honor. it's a somber story to, well, Ring of Honor had some title changes at their big pay-per-view, and they did. Last night was Ring of Honor Final Battle 2022, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times titles change hands. 5 times, sucker, don't make me. Also, Booker T just a little, I'm going off on a tangent here. Like I said, I've had minimal sleep because I've been up to watch 2 wrestling shows before I even start work. But Booker T, just on NXT Deadline, there was a moment where, spoiler, Roxanne Perez won the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge, and Booker T, who trained her, got very emotional at the announced death. It was very cool to see. Very a genuine moment. It was cool to see. But Final Battle, which was the other wrestling show that took place last night, 5 titles changed hands. First up, in the second match of the night, you had Athena defeating Mercedes Martinez to become the new ROH Women's Champion. Then you had the Embassy beating Dalton Boys in the Castle. Dalton Boys in the Castle? Dalton Castle and the Boys. This is my lack of sleep kicking in. The Embassy defeated Dalton Castle and the Boys to become the new ROH 6-man tag team champions. Then you had Wheeler Yuta regaining the Pure title by beating Daniel Garcia. You had the Briscoes, Dem Boys, beating FTR to become the 13-time Ring of Honor tag team champion. And you have Claudio Castagnoli regaining the ROH World title and avoiding joining the JAS by defeating Chris Jericho in the main event. Now, there's lots to get into here. I could talk about all these matches all morning long, or all afternoon long, depending on watching this, but just the Briscoes, man. Jay Briscoe, Mark Briscoe, Dax Harwood, Cash Wheeler. Thank you. What a match. I mean, this, a cheap plug here. I did an interview a few weeks ago with the lovely Tom Talks Rubbish for his YouTube channel, which is gonna go out in January, I believe, is when it's airing. One of the questions I got asked was, what is my match of the year? And it was the Briscoes versus FTR number 2. Last night, those sons of guns have gone and possibly even topped that. Now, this is the third match they've had, this trilogy they've had across the last year. And what a match. Not just was this match of the night, this, again, was a genuine match of the year candidate. Of course, the stipulation was, the gimmick of play was the double dog collar. Now, I can take or leave dog collar matches. When they're good, they're great. But often Roddy Piper, Greg Valentine's the one that jumps out. CM Punk, MJF in more recent times. But sometimes they're just a bit, I don't know. But this, holy moly, man. And it's so... frustrating. It's so frustrating sometimes with how FTR have been used, and the Briscoes as well to an extent, where as of going into Dynamite on Wednesday this past week, there was really we're gonna have a Ring of Honor pay-per-view and FTR aren't on that, and they're not defending the ROH tag team titles, and all of a sudden they just from nowhere it's actually no, it is, and it's going to be a double dog collar match, and it's going to be against the Briscoes again. Why couldn't we have done? I know obviously why we could have done this weeks in advance and build to it, because the Briscoes are not allowed on AEW programming. But it's it was just so thrown together, kayfabe wise, at the last minute. But man, what a match this was! If you've I don't know, if you go your way to watch any match this year, dare I say maybe any match last night, or dare I say maybe any match this year, Briscoes FTR 3, or any of those 3 matches, just ridiculous, man. Just a phenomenal match. And also, just as a shout out for another great match that happened recently, is Speedball Mike Bailey. I mean, what a dude Speedball is. So you got Speedball Mike Bailey going up against the walking weapon Josh Alexander for the Impact World title. Now, this is a match that went nearly an hour. And I watched this last night, and it was just wow. Questions. There are a bunch of questions that have come in today. So first one's coming from Sarah Woods. Morning, Sarah. CM Punk back to WWE, yay or nay? I'm saying yay. I think, at some point. I think Triple H is a very smart businessman. He, as we've seen, he's mended fences with so many people before that were broken by, burned down by Vince McMahon, Bruno Sammartino, the Ultimate Warrior, just as 2 people. Unfortunately, he couldn't mend the bridge with match on Randy Savage and get the match man in the Hall of Fame before he sadly passed away, which that's one that always sticks in my core of it. But Hunter is very good at mending bridges. Hunter's very good at taking himself away from a situation and looking at, it's not it sounds like a pun, but the whole what's best for business. And CM Punk return to WWE is very much best for WWE business. CM Punk in any wrestling promotion, I don't care what you say, I don't care if you're not a CM Punk fan, the guy, if you're any wrestling promotion on the planet, you should be wanting CM Punk to wrestle for you. You should be wanting CM Punk to be an on-air presence for you. You should want him on commentary. It was when, before he got the pipe bomb. He's like, I'm the best on commentary. I'm the best in that ring. I'm the best. And he is. He's great. He's phenomenal. He brings eyeballs to a product. He puts on great matches. He cuts great promos. There are just the positives far outweigh the negatives. You could be the biggest CM Punk hater, but you can't deny what that guy brings to a promotion. And it's one of those where it's like, I mean, if he wrestled a few more matches, there's a chance like he's in the running for Wrestler of the Year for 2022. But yeah, so I think CM Punk in WWE, I think it comes down to CM Punk. If I think WWE Triple H would welcome him with open arms, it's just a case of how Punk views the wrestling business now. As the whole Brawl Out saga has that soured him on wrestling yet again. Is he happy to go back to WWE, knowing the problems from before? But of course, a lot of those problems were Vince McMahon driven. Of course, Triple H was no saint back then. As the famed story where Triple H was going to wrestle CM Punk at WrestleMania. That was one of the plans. CM Punk turned around and said, "Well, you need to wrestle me at WrestleMania. I don't need to wrestle you," sort of thing. As in, I'm the big draw here, and he was. But yeah, it's a long way round here, Sarah. Apologies. It happens on a Sunday. But yes, I think CM Punk does end up back there, and I will be very happy to see it. Don't boo me. Don't boo me. Mark Stolly's got in touch. Hey, Mark. More than Andrew, thoughts on if AEW will have a Hall of Fame first or Chris Jericho goes into the WWE Hall of Fame? Also, do you think being mainly based in one area of AEW will actually build one someday? Okay, maybe then WWE would. Hell, I'll take just one for all wrestling. And there we've got Pooches. As ever on a Sunday, send me pictures of your pets. It always puts a smile on his face, especially a very sleepy face this morning. I think Chris Jericho goes into the WWE Hall of Fame. I think AEW will get around to that eventually to on the Hall of Fame. I don't think that's going to be for a little while. I mean, we're talking about a company that only really came to be in 2019, so I think it's way too early for that. I mean, Chris Jericho is a Hall of Fame talent, no matter how you cut it. He is a headline Hall of Fame talent. He is that marquee name, the name that goes in. He's the headliner for whenever he goes in. The guy. Again, there's a lot of Jericho haters out there, and I mean, some of his stuff in AEW hasn't really been for me, but this last year, you talk about Wrestler of the Year, Chris Jericho's in that conversation. I don't think he is the Wrestler of the Year, but just what a year he's had to turn things around from where things were at AEW, where he's just a bit like, to now just putting on all these great matches. It's like, how are you doing this at your age, man? Jericho is a Hall of Famer, but by any stretch of imagination, any means, whatever you want to test things, you want to talk about in-ring work, you want to talk about promos, you want to talk about influence on the business, you want to talk about legacy, you want to talk about tenure. Chris Jericho, tick, 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 all of those boxes done. So I think in terms of your questions, I've gone slightly around the houses, as you will know very much by now, Mark. Does he go into the AEW Hall of Fame first or the WWE Hall of Fame first? I think by default it's the WWE Hall of Fame. I wouldn't be surprised to see him possibly end up back in WWE in some capacity in a few years. Maybe whether that's as an agent, a producer, an on-screen talent. It could even still be as an in-ring talent. But I think Jericho in the WWE Hall of Fame happens before an AEW one. I think I'll see the third. Hey, Edgar. With the edge of persona they have given Austin Theory, do you think they missed the boat on giving him that edge when KO broke his nose? I feel like that could have been similar to Jax breaking Becky's nose. # Solo Sunday. No. that's the short answer. No, right, next. No, I think that the edgy persona for Austin Theory is great to see. They've really salvaged an act that was going nowhere. I think, though, to compare to Becky Lynch, I don't think he was at the level that Becky was before that happened. And I think that was a part of it, was people were clamoring to see Becky Lynch. And of course, Becky Lynch was a babyface. They tried to turn her heel, that whole turn on Charlotte Flair, which ended up just with more people cheering for Becky. So I think that's the big difference there, that Becky was this really hot babyface that everybody was wanting to see put in the big spots, and he weren't getting it. And there's that kind of almost, held down feel. Though she wasn't, of course, she had titles before that. But there was that kind of held down feel to it. So when that broken nose happened with Nia Jax, that kind of like triggered whoa, that's a badass look, and people just rallied behind Becky even more. With Austin Theory, there's not that rally in there because, I mean, first and foremost, he's a heel, so there's not There's not that natural want to see him succeed and do well and overcome the odds because he's a dirty, cheating scumbag on TV. So yeah, I don't think they missed the boat there, but I am very glad to see Austin Theory in the role he's in at the moment. Nick Johnson's got in touch. Hey Nick, from a wrestling perspective, between the ROH and NXT pay-per-view shows this weekend, which title change are you most surprised by? That's a really good question. I think to kind of skew adjacent from it a little bit, as I mentioned earlier, I was most surprised that Samoa Joe didn't lose the ROH TV title to Juice Robinson. If I'm going to pick one that I'm surprised by, I guess maybe FTR. The Briscoes were, they were 2-0 down in the series so far, so you're thinking they're going to get a win back somewhere, but it felt like FTR were they're on that cusp of, we've got all the gold, we're going to carry on winning more gold. And so I think, maybe FTR, and especially because we weren't sure what the crack was with the Briscoes, whether they were going to be full-time with Ring of Honor, whether Tony was going to sign them. And obviously, clearly, there's plans for the Briscoes, and rightly so, because to me, those two, I don't know, that's a bit unfair. I was going to say that they're probably the two best tag teams on the planet, but the Usos have been having a great year. It's hard to look past them, but to me, FTR are the greatest tag team on the planet. The Briscoes, the Usos, you put them 2 or 3 in some way, shape or form. Ong, I hope that's how I pronounce it. Ong, let's get in touch. Hello, Andrew. Good day to you. My English name is also Andrew. Oh, there we go. My question is that since Triple H is signing more female talents, do you think WWE's women's division needs a secondary title? If yes, what title should be introduced? Queen of the Ring title or women's TDP title? First and foremost, they have got some great female talent there. They've got lots of female talent there. Tegan Knox is the latest to return, which I was very happy to see. As a Welshman, I'm always here for some Knoxie. She's great. So it's great to see her back in the big time on WWE programming. So I think you could introduce a secondary title, but I think first and foremost you need to make the talent you've got. You need to use them in a way that feels like it's worthy of a secondary title. You've got just some of the booking lately I'm not too much of a fan of. I just think, I don't know, at the moment, we all know that Ronda Rousey isn't losing that title on SmackDown until maybe WrestleMania against Becky Lynch. So there's that to focus on. And anybody that goes up, like Raquel Gonzalez is still clearly going to be up against Ronda soon, but we all know that she is not going to win. Well, that's how I'm looking at it anyway. And then over on Raw, you got Bianca Belair, who's done a great job at the top of the mountain. She's to be up against either Alexa Bliss or Bayley. And so, I don't know, it just feels a little bit predictable a bit. And there's WWE, for all the great work it's done with its women's division, sometimes it struggles to keep more than one major story cooking, should we say, on a brand. So, for the last little while, it's been Bianca Belair and it's been Damage Control. That's been the thing. Obviously, we've had War Games where you have more people involved in that. There's been Bianca Belair, Bayley, and off there is Damage Control as well. And if you looked further down the card, there's not really been too much going on in terms of other storylines for the women on Raw. And likewise on SmackDown, it's Ronda Rousey and whoever, and then the rest just kind of trickles down. So I think you could introduce a secondary title. I don't think it's really needed at the moment, but they need to first and foremost be able to kind of keep more plates spinning, have different storylines going on. There can be storylines when there's not a title involved. That's my point. You can have a really good women's feud without it having to be involving the Raw title, the SmackDown title, the NXT title, whatever. Or obviously the tag team titles, which are just a prop at the moment. They're just nothing. So hopefully that answers your question on that. And our last question here from Ashley, who's got in touch. Will John Moxley and Bike escape Takeshita into the Blackpool Combat Club? I would very much be here for that. I had the absolute pleasure and fortune of spending some time with his lordship, Boy Regal, last weekend. And that was one of the topics that came up. Was not Takeshita, but just what happens with Blackpool Combat Club from here on out. This was before the news was announced of what was happening with Regal, that he was definitely returned to WWE. And his approach was that they don't need him anymore, the Blackpool Combat Club, as in Regal, that is not needed. But now it's about bringing in those young guys, and maybe somebody else joins, and maybe it's more about Moxley and Danielson and Claudio being the mentors and having Wheeler Yuta to learn from those. And Takeshita's as good a fit as anything. God, man, how good is he? Just just phenomenal. What a worker, what a wrestler. Of course, be sure to come and follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. You can follow myself if you really want to at Cultured Left Peg on Twitter. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, follow, all of that good generic stuff. Most importantly, have a great Sunday. Whatever you do, whether it's something, whether it's nothing, I hope it goes really smooth for you. And if it doesn't, I hope that frown turns upside down. And I will be back next week. Catch you later. Oh, of course, make sure to go and watch FTR and Briscoes and Speedball Mike Bailey versus Josh Alexander. You will not be sorry.